Good afternoon, everyone. Good. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. We get a pledge of allegiance. Timo, can you please lead us in the pledge of allegiance? Give it a minute and let people get situated.
Hand over your heart. Repeat after me.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Get a roll call, please.
Director Pacala.
Yes.
Director McMillan. Here. Director Robert.
Here.
Director Quady.
Here.
Director Avila.
Here. Thank you, Karen. Public comments. This portion of the agenda may be utilized by any member of the public to address the board of directors on any matter within the jurisdiction of the board that does not appear on the agenda and on matters that are on the agenda but are not designated as action items. Depending on the subject matter, the board of directors may be unable to respond at this time or until the specific topic is placed on the agenda at a future Calleguas board meeting. In accordance with the Ralph M. Brown Act, please limit remarks to 3 minutes.
If anyone online would like to make public comment at this time, please use the raise hand feature. Would note that we do have one public comment card for an item on consent calendar, so we'll address that at that.
Okay.
And if anyone's wondering about what's going on in the middle here, that's a prop for later in the meeting. It's not just art.
We have any public comment?
There are no raised hands online.
In that case, I have presentations.
None
No
tonight.
presentations, items to be added to the agenda.
None tonight.
And 5, the consent calendar. And
We do have a presentation for item C, and we also have a public comment for item C.
okay, so in that case, let's go ahead and do the presentation for item C.
Give me a moment to cue that up. So our item tonight is to talk about the Ventura interconnection. There's 3 critical agreements that we're talking about tonight, but since it's been a while since we delved into the details on this, I wanted to just kind of run through for the board a little bit of the background and history. Particularly, we also have a new board member who has joined us since we last spent a lot of time on this project. So the background is, and I think the board does generally know this, that we do have limited sources of water and stored imported water available during outages. The primary one is, of course, here at Lake Bard and our Lake Bard water filtration plant. We also have the aquifer storage and recovery well field. We have a small interconnection with Crestview, and I am pleased to say we have an interconnection with Las Virgenes, which is available for operation if we were to need it. And we are continuing to develop additional water supplies through the water supply alternative study that's been completed and the water resources implementation strategy, which is phase 1 is nearly complete for outages. But I would also note that the RIST considers this project to be part of our baseline and status quo. So the city of Ventura actually has a state water project entitlement of 10,000 acre feet. The way it actually works is Ventura County Watershed Protection District is technically the state water project contractor. And then under that contract, Ventura, United, and Casitas each have entitlements. But there's no infrastructure to deliver that water to them. So we entered into an agreement in 2023, which some of our longer tenured board members will recall, between us, the city, and then United to build the interconnection. And it was, United's role was pretty limited. It's primarily between us and Ventura. What this does for the Ventura is it allows them to get some of their state water project water through wheeling. It provides them a backup supply, which they need for their potable reuse project. That's a regulatory requirement. And then they've also had some water quality challenges with their groundwater, particularly with total dissolved solids or salts in Eastern Ventura that this would help to address. And then for us, it provides this access to an alternative water supply when imported water is not missing board there is available. It also, and this wasn't frankly part of the original consideration, it facilitates some potential future risk projects. Some of the things we're considering, this makes those possibilities more implementable. So this is a map of the pipeline alignment. The yellow part is the part that we would be constructing, starts at Springville Reservoir, And then we meet up at about Santa Clara Avenue. The green portion would be constructed by the city of Ventura, and then it would tie in with their system there. Really interesting feature of this pipeline design is it's actually 2 connection points on our end of it. And that's because in order to avoid the need for construction of a pump station, like we had to do on the LV interconnection, we deliver water to them from the higher pressure side of Springville Hydro and Reg, whatever number that is. Which reg station is it? Reg 5, thank you. And we take delivery of water at the low side of that. And that enables the hydraulics to work without a pump station, which is a creative solution I cannot take credit for. Susan Mulligan, 2 general managers ago, came up with that approach. So what is on the agenda for consideration today are 3 different agreements. I will not read out these very long names, but they come down to a wheeling agreement that is between Metropolitan, Calleguas, and Ventura. One that is just between Calleguas and Ventura, and then this emergency use agreement that I'll talk about a little bit in a minute here. So what's wheeling? Wheeling's just moving water through another agency's system. You're required to do this under state law as long as certain conditions are met. There are more conditions, but these are kind of the most critical ones as far as I'm concerned. Got to have the capacity, get degrade water quality, and you're paid fairly for it. And all of those conditions are met here. And in this case, we're literally moving the same water that we take delivery of. So we've got the 2 wheeling agreements I talked about. They're pretty similar in structure. They talk about scheduling deliveries, the availability of capacity. Basically, there's no guarantees here. We move the water when we can, if we can. There are some system losses considerations. So that's 3% in the Met system. It's 0.5% very proudly in ours. The wheeling cost, which for Met is a numeric value in the agreement with an approach to escalation using, there's actually a consumer price index specific to utilities. And as well as we have an adopted wheeling rate. That's actually one of the rates that the board adopts every year when you are adopting the rest of the rates. It just hasn't been put into use. And then the standard stuff of indemnification, standard terms, et cetera, et cetera. Let me also mention on the wheeling agreements, all 3 agreements have been reviewed by Walt as district council. The 2 agreements involving Metropolitan have already been approved by the Metropolitan Board, and all 3 agreements have been approved by the City of Ventura City Council. We're the last ones to approve everything. The emergency use agreement was a little bit of an interesting wrinkle because we didn't actually know this was going to be necessary till we were in the negotiation process. And where this comes from is that the Department of Water Resources, which oversees the state water project, requires that there be an agreement to enable one state water project contractor to deliver water into another's area. It's basically just protection of everyone's turf. And under the emergency use agreement, this could occur if the city has an emergency need and we deliver water to them, we in Metropolitan. In that case, the water get paid back by just taking their state water project water later. And then if we take water from them, we would pay that water back after the emergency through delivery of water purchased from Metropolitan, which would once again result in state water project water being delivered into a different state water project contractor's service area. So this is apparently a relatively routine thing. The agreement's pretty straightforward, but it does need to occur so that no one runs afoul of DWR's requirements. So tonight, the recommended action is to authorize me to execute all 3 agreements. As I mentioned, they've all been approved by the Ventura City Council, reviewed by our district council, and then the 2 agreements involving Metropolitan have already been approved by their board. So this is an important milestone. Assuming the board approves these agreements tonight, we will continue to pursue funding opportunities. We've been very successful in that so far. I believe Ventura has over 20 million in grant funding, and we have, I believe, around 8 or 9 million. But we are continuing to pursue other funding as well. They're making great progress on design. I believe it's at 90%. And right-of-way acquisition is underway. And then, of course, got to build it. And then there would be one more agreement required, similar to how we approached this in the LV interconnection. We got all the agreements laid out that needed to be done ahead of construction. And then we worked on the operations agreement so that it was ready and approved before construction was complete and we were ready for operation. But we don't need that level of detail right now. And we found that it was helpful as we were working through construction. That really helped us identify the kinds of things that we needed to include in that agreement. And we have a great template for that now from the LV interconnection. So with that, can take any questions.
We go ahead and start with public comments. Jennifer.
Good afternoon, board. I'm Jennifer Trubo. I'm the Assistant General Manager for Water Resources. The City of Ventura is Ventura Water. I just wanted to come here this evening to show my support for this item and to thank you and your staff for its commitment to this project. As Christine said, the city has had a 10,000 acre foot entitlement to state water project water since 1971, but we've been unable to access the supply due to a lack of infrastructure. We've considered various ways to access this water for the last nearly 50 years, until in 2017, discussions with Calleguas Municipal Water District resulted in development of a mutually beneficial project, the 7-mile connection between Calleguas and the city system. Because of Calleguas's participation, the city is able to construct its 4-mile portion of the project to finally enable delivery of state water project to our system. The agreements on the agenda today represent the important next steps in moving this project forward. City Council approves these agreements on March 18th, and the city anticipates moving this project into construction phase with bidding for construction in this summer, early fall.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. Director Pacala.
Well,
Oh, you have a question for Jennifer?
I'll ask you later. Okay. Well,
No, it's-
let me make some comments first, then I'll ask you a question. Thank you, Christian, for bringing this up. As you know, I'm the new on this board. I did go through all the agreements. I had several questions, so I sent them to Christine yesterday, and she was so responsive. She responded to all my questions. Thank you for that. And also, thank you for this presentation. I have just a couple of questions for you. What source of supply do you have within the city system, like groundwater? What are the different supply sources?
We have 2 surface water supplies. We have water from Lake Casitas that we purchase from Casitas Municipal Water District. We have shallow groundwater that we produce from the Ventura River that we treat in our system and then distribute. And then we produce water from 3 groundwater basins, the Mountain Groundwater Basin, the Oxnard Plain, and then the Santa Paula Basin that we have conditioning facilities and distribute through our system. And then we're in the process of developing Ventura Water Pure Project, which will treat our wastewater discharge into potable water.
When is Ventura Pure Water supposed to be coming online?
They are in the implementation phase now. There's a large wastewater project needs to be completed in conjunction. I think right now our timetable for completion is around 2029 to 2030.
Okay. Regarding your urban water management plan for the city, does your water management plan show enough supplies for you to supply Calleguas under this agreement?
Yes, we did. Our urban water management plan includes those new water supplies coming online. And with those supplies, we had enough water for a 5-year drought. And I believe prior to me becoming part of this project, that part of the calculations were that we would have sufficient ability to supply Calleguas in an outage as long as we were returned.
Yeah, because we would pay the water back later, so they might pump more groundwater over a short period of time than they would ordinarily, but then they would be able to lay off the pumping when we pay the water back.
Pay them back in water.
We pay them back in water, not in dollars. Correct.
Yeah.
So there are redundancies in your system to provide additional water when Calleguas needs it.
Yes, and that was anticipating that the Ventura Water Pure would be online as well. And these projects are, the timeline for these projects is about the same.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming and answering my questions.
Yes.
Anybody else have questions for Jennifer?
I just had a quick question on exhibit A. Is that just an invoice or a data sheet?
Oh, invoice A is part of, yeah, sorry, not invoice A. I got me saying the wrong things. Which agreement is that part of? Because there's 3 agreements.
City of Ventura.
Is it,
Calleguas
so it's the second,
and MWD. So it's all
it's the Wheeling one, not the emergency use one, right?
on page.
Oh, yeah, that'd be really 47, you said?
48 is what I'm actually after.
Okay, 48.
48 of the packet.
This is just an example of what something like that would look like.
That's a data sheet or an invoice.
It is,
I guess it doesn't matter much, but I just.
it's a data sheet. I would characterize it as a data sheet.
Thank you.
No, my question is I have 2 questions. Is this new infrastructure that we're building the pipeline within our sphere of influence, or is this something that would go to LAFCO?
LAFCO has already agreed to the project conceptually. Gosh, was it so long ago? It was before you were on LAFCO? Or would?
Yes, it was before I was Calleguas, actually.
Okay, yeah, so the condition they put on it was basically that, I don't know, Jennifer, if you want me to talk about this, because it was really about.
Before me, yes.
Okay,
So it was the
LAFCO
same
approved.
staff, or is this all new people now?
No, Kai was there.
I was there.
Yeah, we have a letter from Kai that says, you're good. It's just that it was characterized for Ventura that this water needed to make up for losses they were experiencing elsewhere in their supplies, such as in the various groundwater basins.
Okay.
So it has already been approved by LAFCO.
Okay, and my other question is, with the wheeling agreement, if we need to take water from the city of Ventura in an emergency, what part of our district could it be used by?
We would be able to physically move it to Oxnard and Port Hueneme. We wouldn't be able to move it backwards without additional infrastructure that is contemplated under RIST, but we would be able to feed them, and that would leave more water from our other backup sources and storage available to other parts of the system.
Does anybody else have questions?
I guess there's an advantage there to get it to the furthest part of our system.
Certainly, but that is a significant undertaking, and that may be necessary under RIST. But it isn't an infrastructure I would recommend making just for this purpose.
No. Okay, with that, I'm looking for motion for the consent calendar, or anybody have questions on any other item?
Well, as far as this particular, are you going to make motion for this item? I'm ready to make a motion, but I have comments on other items.
Okay, let's do it all together. So which items do you have a question on? Let's go ahead.
Well, as far as approving minutes, I'll be abstaining for that.
Okay,
I was not here. As far as item B, payment register, I just have one suggestion for our fiscal manager. I don't say.
Dan is online today,
On that.
so he can hear you.
Well, it's just my suggestion, Dan, on page 107, 108, you give a good comparison of budgets for revenues and expenditures. I thought moving forward, if you could have a fiscal year end column, that will be helpful, at least from my perspective, to see what's going to happen at the end of the day, end of the year.
good idea.
That's all.
Dan, any concerns? Is that an easy thing to do?
Is that for the financial statement report?
Yeah, it's on page 107.
Yeah.
108.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so we're talking
It's not
about
on
the
consent
item,
calendar.
the item that comes later,
consent calendar.
it's 7A2.
Oh, that's later. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on items on the consent calendar? Okay, looking for a motion.
I make it.
Two. Consent calendar.
Second.
First and a second.
I got stereo.
First time when I heard Dan's voice, I was like. huh?
First is Director Robert, second is Director McMillan.
Yeah.
Okay. Director Pacala,
Yes.
Director McMillan. Yes. Director Robert.
Yes.
Director Quady. Director Avila.
Aye. Okay, motion carries on consent calendar. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you for
Okay,
coming.
moving on to the action items. Action item A, discussion of notice to set the date, time and place of a public hearing to consider amending Calleguas ordinance number 15, setting director's compensation.
Yes, our Manager of Human Resources and Risk Management, Tricia Ferguson, will be handling this item.
Great. So today I'm just here to facilitate the conversation on your board stipend. This typically gets reviewed annually and it is under ordinance 15. So today you guys, I brought together some information for you, to show you where we're currently at so you can review where we've been in the past and what you'd like to do going forward. So where are we? Okay, here's the history of the board statement. So you guys can see kind of what the pattern has been in the past. The last stipend increase you guys approved was April 5th of 2023. So it's been a couple years. And then to show you guys where you fall within other districts locally, we are at 230 currently, and here's what the average and the median are for what other agencies are offering. So today you guys can discuss if you'd like to do an increase in your stipend, and regulated by ordinance 15 as well as the water code. You guys are authorized to do up to 10% this year. So you get to do 5% per year. And this is based off the $100 compensation that was set in the water code so many years ago.
We have first we have public comment.
Anyone online would like to comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature now.
Okay,
There are no raised hands.
comments from the board.
Comments from the board?
Sorry, yeah.
Oh.
Let's what does the board think?
I think it's time for an increase, given the amounts that these other patients are receiving. And the work that we put in, you know, even just going through board packets and what have you, I don't think a $10 increase is that bad.
It's a motion to discuss it.
Right, you don't have to decide the compensation tonight. That can be decided or it will be decided and confirmed if you decide to at the next hearing. So you'll have another bite at the apple to discuss the amount.
Can I ask a question, Walt? We will be publishing a public hearing notice, and I believe in that notice, we did have a blank to put the amount that we would be increasing by. So do we need to revise that?
No,
Okay.
the blank is there just to designate that
Okay.
it hasn't been established yet. It'll be
Okay.
established at the public hearing.
Okay, perfect. Just didn't want to leave it out. Thank you.
It goes to show that the determination hasn't already been made and the public will have a chance to talk.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on the board? Like to say anything?
Well, I look at the report analysis that our manager has done. She has done a thorough review of all the other member agencies. I also looked at the idea is she's giving us about less than cost of CPI, less than CPI. And my part is that as long as you are not trying to get the stipend higher than other agencies or not more than CPI, I am okay with it.
So you would support a discussion on the matter?
We have a motion.
I make a motion.
Okay, we have a first, second.
Director Pacala,
Yes.
Director McMillan,
Yes.
Director Robert,
Yes.
Director Quady,
Aye.
Director Avila.
Aye. Okay, motion carries.
So just to summarize, the public hearing notice will be published in the paper for 2 weeks. And then we'll bring this back on May 7th is the day we will do the hearing with our board meeting.
Thank you, Tricia. Okay, 6B, discussion regarding AB 523 concerning Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. alternate representatives.
Yes, our Manager of External Affairs, Charlotte Holifield, will be handling this item.
Right. Very good. Good evening, directors. You may recall at our last board meeting, we had a discussion about this bill. I know you were absent, Director Pacala, but the agreement was to come back at this board meeting with a staff recommendation for this bill. And I'm just going to give you a few quick slides as a refresher on what this is all about. The bill was introduced February 10th. Sponsor is Eastern Municipal Water District. And the original bill authorized an alternate representative to be selected when the Metropolitan representative was going to be absent from the Metropolitan Board meeting. There were some significant concerns raised by Metropolitan directors about the original bill. One was concern about board continuity and confidentiality might be compromised if there were a non-Met representative selected, cost and logistical challenges, as well as the potential for other proposed changes in the Metropolitan Act if it were open for this purpose. So the current status, you probably saw in your board packet, there are some proposed amendments and they address most of these concerns. So they would change the alternate representative language to a proxy vote authorization, meaning only another Metropolitan director could take the place of the absent director. That authorization must be presented in writing at least one business day in advance of the Metropolitan Board meeting. And if the absent representative is a board officer, the substitute would not be authorized to fulfill that role. With regard to the Metropolitan Act being opened and potential hostile amendments being accepted in the bill, both the author and sponsor have committed to keeping the bill limited in scope to this issue only. So next week, the Metropolitan Legislation and Communication Committee will be considering a staff recommendation of support if amended. The same day, the full board will consider that vote. And as we discussed last time, the potential Calleguas benefit right now would be if Director McMillan were to be absent from the Metropolitan Board meeting, there would be representation for Calleguas and that vote would not be lost. So our staff recommendation is to support this bill. Welcome your comments and questions.
Okay, do we have public comments?
If any member of the public would like to comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature now.
Okay, no public
I
comments,
see no right
board discussion.
I don't know where we left off last time we discussed this, but I felt like either option wasn't quite the best. You know, one of them didn't give us enough time and the other one, you had to trust someone of another agency to vote in your favor. So I guess I don't know how we feel about it.
Absolutely. I'm still in the same boat. Maybe Director McMillan knows her fellow board members there better, but I think nobody is as fit as our agency to speak for ourselves. So we as a board know our district's position and what our goals are. And we're giving that vote to another agency that we may trust, but they may change that vote.
Are we compelled to assign an alternate from another agency or is it just an option?
It's an option.
Okay. So I guess there's that, right? If it does pass and we choose not to, it's fine.
But if you feel strongly that you would like to have an alternate from this board, now would be the time to direct staff to write a letter. And if that's the decision of the board.
That's kind of the way that I was leaning, just because I know that there's a little more, you have to give a little more advance notice, but I feel like if our Met rep can know in advance when they're going to be absent for such a meeting, then that can be organized, right? And that individual will have more intimate knowledge of our efforts and our initiatives and our constituents and all that
Our interest.
and our purveyors and yeah, so I lean that way personally.
And also creates an opportunity for succession planning. You know, you get to know the board, the alternate can come to the board, meet the board members and kind of develop a rapport with them. So that when you're on, you replace me, it's a comfortable transition.
And just exposure to the board member, you know, if someone is standing in, hasn't had a lot of experience with Metropolitan, you know, there's experience gained there. I think that's really, I'd appreciate a middle ground, right? Someone that you could designate on your board as a stand-in, but I understand why they didn't. I think we went into that last time, but.
Okay. Director Quady?
Well, to me, I guess I echo the fact that it sounds kind of tight on what it sounds like the bill, how the bill was written. 1 day.
1 day in advance, is that what you're
Yeah.
referring to? 1 day in advance in writing.
And since it is just a proxy, somebody, that would be kind of tight to button up. And so it seems like the MWD rep should actually be able to call the ball on that. Whether or not, they know somebody can step in that window, or do we go out to our board? So to me, that's where I'm kind of hung up, is it sounds like it's a little tight, but maybe it's a step forward if you prove it now.
The Metropolitan representative can certainly coordinate ahead of 1 day. You know, it's just the notification process has to be 24 hours to Metropolitan, but it could be planned, you know, days in advance or a week.
And I did want to ask, I think I see it in here in Amendment 4. It is kind of the definition of a proxy vote, is that this representative would be just simply in for that function.
Correct.
So looks okay to me. I think it's just a step, step forward if it can go.
Well, I listened to that Metropolitan Legislative tape, I guess, you sent us. It appears that there are some member agencies that are not in favor of this. And also I heard this proxy legislation was proposed during Arnold Schwarzenegger time. And it actually was passed by both Congress, House and Senate. However, the governor vetoed it. So I think proxy vote may be the best that could happen under the circumstances. If current governor approves it, it's at least something better than nothing. That's my perspective.
Yeah, it is better than nothing. Though maybe could we request something completely different? A proxy member from the Metropolitan Director Agency, right? So not necessarily an alternate, so maybe they could consider, Director McMillan can attend. She can request that somebody from her board attend. Right, so it wouldn't be an alternate necessarily, but definitely a proxy vote from the member agency.
Right.
Something like that to me would make more sense. I'm just gonna use Las Virgenes as an example. They're probably our closest agency in terms of the way we think. We're not always lock and step, right? And I think, we're the agencies that don't have more than one board member may be put in a difficult situation for reasons like this.
And I concur in the sense that it sounds like it's a logistical difficulty, but as Charlotte brought up, it's known ahead of time that our director wouldn't be there. That may be the only time advantage we actually have. So we could probably still live with their tight window here. But, I think it's a step forward. not the step, but it's a step.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding the board discussion correctly, it sounds like there's a kind of a general sense that having a proxy option is better than having nothing, which is the current situation they're in, but the board would prefer the original concept of the alternate. Is that correct?
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's what I hear.
Or some version of the original.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how we play that. I'm looking to Charlotte for some
Sure. If
suggestions.
the board directs staff to communicate that to the sponsor and or author, that would be an appropriate next step.
Another option in addition or instead is, obviously, we have a Met director here. We expect this to come before the Met board on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So that is another avenue for if the board, wishes to
And this is
request that Director McMillan speak.
a perfect example.
Mhm.
The Metropolitan Board right now is looking at a proxy, but it looks like our board is lock and step in. Well, this is okay, but we'd rather have this. Right? So this is a perfect example of why first option's a better choice.
Sport with reservations.
Well, I think Charlotte, if you could reiterate what you think might be a reasonable option that kind of captures what the board's thinking is.
Sure. So staff could certainly put together a letter with the board's suggestions. I would communicate that to the sponsor and the author, proposing, what you've discussed here tonight and see what the response might be.
Charlotte, my understanding is before the board meeting, there's also legislative committee meeting.
An hour before.
Oh,
Yes, it's the same, if I'm not mistaken, Director McMillan, but Legislative and Communications Committee, I believe, meets at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, and the full board meeting is that same day at noon.
Would it be beneficial if our board attends the legislative and speaks or?
Actually,
is that just-
sorry, just to correct scheduling, please don't interrupt you. The Communications Committee meeting is at 11 a.m. on Monday.
Oh, pardon
The
me.
board meeting is at noon on the 8th, which is the Tuesday.
Mhm.
And I'm going to try to answer your question before I even let you finish asking it. Our board is certainly welcome to provide public comment at any or both of those meetings. There are options both to do so in person or remote.
Would it be worthwhile to, shop our reservations with other other boards that are similar to ours with one board member or one Met member?
I can talk to the North Caucus tomorrow when we meet and kind of poll them and see where they're coming from.
Good idea.
I'll make sure.
It may feel similar.
Yeah.
Because we're in a similar boat, and if we have enough support for a clear message to the sponsor and author, that may be something with a little more weight.
Sure.
But I think the range is interesting because I'm more concerned about how the logistics of changing that vote and making sure that we don't lose our vote.
Yeah.
And I am about whether it's a proxy or a true alternate.
Mhm.
I don't care much about that. But I know others do.
Just want to do a recommendation or do we want to make a motion? And
Well, I would move that we.
I make a motion that staff pursue our discussion with appropriate sub-agent or agencies or a legislative committee, communicate with them our preferences.
As amending to go ahead and support the bill as is.
I wouldn't say as is.
What I've heard from the board is to say that the preference is for the original alternate concept with a proxy as a less favored option.
Yes. So what I would say is that we write a letter supporting the original alternate.
Right.
But at the end, we might mention, well, if that's not something that Met would want to consider or other agencies, then we're okay with the other.
Okay.
And just to clarify who the letter is going to, the sponsor, which is Eastern,
Water District and member Jackie Earl.
Assemblymember Jackie Irwin. Would the board also like a comment letter to the Legend Communications Committee, or does that seem like more than enough?
I I would.
You okay with that?
Perfectly fine.
Okay.
I guess my idea about shopping it around, we don't really have time for that.
I think we're pretty,
No, but I'll get feedback and I will let you know. I'll send it to Christine and she can share it.
I guess if, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I guess if those boards haven't sent their opinions or thoughts yet, they could mirror ours, but that may also be too late, depending on their schedule. So, all right.
I think we should go our own route if the board chooses to do that, irrespective of other agencies at this point in time.
I think definitely that.
I think communicating with the legislative committee is a great idea from the board.
Yeah.
If somebody,
If we're gonna write one letter, we can write it to more than one instance.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, this is a legislative committee where we would make personal comments or,
You could do it there and at the board.
public comments.
but is it considered too late at the board?
No, we've flipped votes before at the board.
Do we as a board want to make one comment or do we have several public comments?
Could we be copied on the communication that you're sending out to the author and sponsor, and that we can start there as a unified voice and with variations of individuals? That's what I'm gonna do, but
No.
My thought is to have a unified comment. That's my thought.
No, just have one commenter that speaks on behalf of the board. That's up to you all to decide.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be available at 11 a.m. on Monday and noonish on. I mean, on Monday and Tuesday.
But
You can participate remotely, right? No one needs to go downtown to make this public comment. You call, there's a number on the agenda and I can, if you designate an official commenter, I can make sure that person has the information they need. And I will be down there because Henry's on vacation Monday, Tuesday, so.
I've always wanted to go to that meeting.
Yes.
Okay, we just got our president.
And you want to go in person?
I would go in person. I think it means more than when you're in person.
I think so too.
When you're on the phone.
Yeah.
I think it does too, just from what I've seen as an observer in the Met board and committee room.
we'll move that our president go in person to.
I would say, I would love it if, not only myself, but if, our president and vice president could go there, as a unified voice. Be okay.
Okay, great. We'll get to working on that letter.
Well, I think we still need a
Need
vote
a motion.
on, I think we have a very complicated motion.
Oh, yes.
Okay, do you want me to make the motion? I make the motion that we send a letter of support for the original plan. But also the letter should state that we are okay with the alternative option of a proxy. And that we write a letter to the assemblywoman and the sponsoring agency.
Very good.
Second.
Make a presentation at the legislative committee.
Well, public comment,
Oh,
not a presentation.
And that the president and vice president will make public comment.
okay.
These minutes are gonna be fun.
Oh,
Tuesday.
Yeah, the Legislation and Communications Committee is at 11 a.m. on Monday. The Board of Directors meeting is at noon on Tuesday.
Are you making comments at both in person or just one on Monday?
and you can join me for lunch in
Okay,
the board, in the dining room.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Either be square.
First and a second, do we have a roll call?
Avila first and Robert second.
Yes.
Director Pacala,
Yes.
Director McMillan. Yes. Director Robert,
Yes.
Director Quady.
Aye.
Director Avila.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to reports. General manager and staff reports, item 1, monthly status report. And I'm pretty excited here.
Yeah,
Our new way of doing it.
Yeah, we have a new feature today. We're gonna, per President Avila's request, highlight kind of 5 items each month and provide a little bit more detail about those items. And so what we've elected to do is just prepare a single slide on each of them where we provide a little bit more information. And we'll also have the option to have some guest speakers which is perfect to tee up our first speaker tonight, is one of our special guests. Senior Project Manager Cesar Romero will be speaking about our first highlighted item. So if we can move to the next slide and Cesar can come up to the podium and share. There we go.
Which number is this?
All right.
Oh, that I didn't think to put in there.
Oh, good idea.
Okay, I'll work on that.
What's that, Christine?
Oh, I didn't identify them by number in the monthly status report. I didn't think of that. So, okay, if we do that next month.
Don't redundantly ask it again.
And after this presentation, I'm gonna be asking for all the numbers that the board has, so we could go through them real quick.
I will look up the numbers while folks are presenting. I'm sorry?
38.
38, thank you.
38.
Go right ahead. Thank
All right. Well, good afternoon, Board of Directors. It's my first time speaking to the board, this board specifically. It's been a few years. Want to share some good news. I take it as good news regarding a project I'm partial to. About 3 years being partial to in the field. But yes, the Calleguas Las Virgenes interconnection. So we just wrapped up last year about 3 years of hard construction, startup and testing. So we're pretty ecstatic. I'm pretty ecstatic to be done with that effort. And as part of that effort, we applied for and we were selected as a finalist for the prestigious Aqua 2025 Claire A. Hill Water Agency Award for Excellence. That's a mouthful. But Fernando, we're one of 5 finalists, correct? Right. So that is pretty exciting. And we applied as co-applicants with Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. So both of us are mentioned in that. Both agencies will be recognized during the Aqua Spring Conference in Monterey. So that's coming up May 13th through 15th. And the award winner will be announced during that conference. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. I think we have a good chance. And our very own manager of engineering, Fernando, will be participating in what's called an innovation panel to talk about the project, field questions along, I guess, with the other 5 finalists. So that'll be interesting and nice place. So we're, again, keeping our fingers crossed that we're the winners and that we're selected. And if we are, we'll receive a special award, recognition, and more importantly, a $5,000 scholarship, not for us or me, but for a deserving student that applied for the Claire A. Hill scholarship and will be ultimately awarded. And if we're selected as a winner, we will participate and have the responsibility and frankly, the privilege to review the stack of scholarship applications and then provide a short list of 3 finalists from our perspective to the Aqua Scholarship and Award Subcommittee. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll know here soon within a couple months. So pretty happy.
Thank you, Cesar. Much deserved.
Wow,
I know
thank
much
you.
work put into that.
And I just wanted to say on that one, because I did have that picture, that congratulations to all the contributors toward the Hill finals. And that I think you have something special there with the 2 agency partnership. I think that'd be significant toward the award. So
Incredible.
keep your fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, our next presenter, and this is on item 66, is Fernando, our manager of engineering.
Good evening, Board of Directors. Next slide. Perfect. Thank you. So the next update or next highlight is on the progress that has been done on the work to renovate Staff House number 3. I want to confirm that we have started demo work. Our staff started that a few weeks ago. We were able to perform a couple of investigations specifically to inform the bid that's going to be executed to do this work. So we verified the electrical wiring at the house is not aluminum. It is copper, so that's a big win. The walls do have insulation. As you can see in that photo, that's the what used to be the kitchen. You can see the bat insulation there. And we also were able to verify that there are 2 independent electrical feeds that feed 1 panel in the garage and 1 panel in the house. The house is being powered by a feed from the adjacent development. And we were also happy to start demo as the slide here shows. 2 of our Staff members started with removing carpet, baseboards, the wall paneling in the kitchen and kitchen cabinets. As you can see, that is a living room on the right, and there used to be a kitchen with appliances and cabinets on the left. Those have already been removed. The bathroom fixtures have been also removed, closet doors and appliances. We've gutted one of the the kitchen and one of the bathrooms. We also identified some mold behind some of the shower stalls, so that has been also exposed. So the contractor can also include that remediation in their proposal. We're using Sourcewell, the cooperative purchasing system, to expedite this work. The system complies with the public contract code as well as our purchasing or procurement policy. And again, we just received the proposal yesterday afternoon. So staff is reviewing that. I'm reviewing that with the goal of coming back to this board, asking authorization for a capital project budget to implement that work. So great progress made, and happy to provide this update and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
He answered my question.
Director Bella?
Go ahead.
What is the completion schedule, but how much longer will it take for this project to be completed?
So this house, as soon as we issue the notice to proceed, we need to verify with the contractor, but we're anticipating about 2 to 3 months. So 8 to 12 weeks, depending on what else is discovered as we go through remodeling.
Fast schedule, thank you.
It is a fast schedule, yes.
Is MDI the only contractor that responded to the quote?
MDJ is one of the contractors that won the competitive bid schedule with this type of work. So their rates were one of several contractors. There's contractors in Northern California, Southern California. This was a local one that was one of the winners for those competitive rates.
That's great. They're out of Ventura County.
They're local in Ventura County, yes.
When were you all demolishing?
What were we?
Yeah, when were you all removing?
We finished last week, and it was about 2 weeks or so, 2.5.
Honey,
2.5 weeks.
I was ripping out my kitchen last weekend, so we were probably doing the same thing.
I have to give credit to 2 inspectors that actually took this on. It was not me.
Okay.
I think the day after we took the tour, was it?
It was pretty close.
Said we had some inspectors, they're already ripping out kitchen.
Yes.
It was pretty quick after that.
When did this fetish to break things start? But I do have an additional question is what you see here, and the answer to my question was this to inform the bid information. And I was just wondering, are we going to come with a framework then of what our own standards are going to be? Is that what the consultant's doing?
Yeah, so we've already specified the scope of work for the remodeling, including type of kitchen cabinets, appliances, fixtures in the bathrooms, type of flooring, all that's already been specified for the contractor to put together their proposal.
Okay, and you know what I'm thinking about too, right? Is any kind of fire resistance or earthquake kind of stuff.
Absolutely, yes. That was one of the things that was specified to be able to provide a Class A fire rated roof. That is included. Yes.
And
the other,
I was just gonna say, did we look at the decking just for fire protection, just because there's a lot
that's all wood
back there?
Correct. That is something that we are also planning to implement, whether it's treating the wood or just replacing the entire deck with fire retardant.
Yeah, what I was gonna recommend and what I would like to see, to go along with some of that is, I would like it in the admin code under housing, our standards and requirements from our agency on the standard of living for these homes and our employees. Outline, should be inspected every so often, should be repaired within X amount of time. Should be, all repairs should take into consideration fireproofing. Things like that. I would like to see that so that it's there. Staff can see it and we know, staff knows what they're getting into, that we care and we want to see this high standard going forward.
Tricia is the official keeper of the admin code, and I see her taking notes on that. So we will work on that and bring some language back to the board at a later date.
I think that's a great idea.
I'd recommend also a responsibility for the occupant to report issues in a timely manner. Just because we don't want someone who's like, no, it's fine, I don't mind, I'll deal with it. And then that go on. So that way we say, no, please report it. We'll get it taken care of in a timely manner. That way we, keep the property up without letting things kind of roll over.
In a formal way would be great. If we have a form, they fill out, submit it, can be tracked and reported.
Yeah, we'll look into options for that. It may be doable in the new tax replacement system. Okay. Wes looks unconvinced and he knows the most about that system, so maybe not. We will work through that.
I'll ask after that gets started, I'll ask in a year, how many trouble tickets did we submit? Fast forward, we'd respond. What was the satisfaction of the guest?
Okay.
The occupant, how about that?
The tenant.
The spirit of it is, and this is what Bill was saying, is that we want that to be suitable, very suitable for the employee.
I think the sentiment has been to treat that as a district asset and maintain it as such. So that is the goal.
Understood. We will proceed accordingly. And I know both the residents who are currently living in the houses up at the lake are in the room today. So I'm sure they appreciate the board's consideration and concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter will be our Manager of Water Resources, Jennifer Lancaster, and she will be presenting on item 23.
Good evening, directors. I am really excited to announce that we had our very first native plant sale on March 1st. And for this, we partnered with the Ventura County Master Gardeners, who also we partner with for various other things like the monthly drip irrigation workshops. This event turned out to be very popular with the community. And in fact, the Master Gardeners brought 200 plants to sell, and we sold out within about the first 45 minutes. So it was really, really popular that we had lots of people come. We had 30-minute presentations that were given by Master Gardeners on various plant care, plant selection, how to take care of native plants. They were done here in this room, and for some of them, it was standing room only. We had just a really great response from the community. So now that we really have a sense of the scale of the event, we would love to move forward making this an annual event, and the Master Gardeners will know to bring many, many more plants next time. And it's just really great to see that there is a big desire for this in our community. And we got a lot of people expressing gratitude for the event and really enjoying what we had to offer. We just wish we had the plants for a little bit longer for people to be able to purchase. But the Master Gardeners were able to pre-sell additional plants, and then those folks were able to come 2 weeks later and pick them up here at the headquarters. So even people who didn't get to take home a plant that day still were able to get one. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yeah, it sounds like an extension process is good to have on the sale event.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Item 20.
Yes, our next one is item 20, and that will be our Manager of External Affairs, Charlotte Holyfield.
Good evening again, directors. So every year, the Association of California Water Agencies holds a legislative symposium in Sacramento. The purpose is to gather directors and legislative staff from various water agencies across the state, hear from elected officials and different panels. So I was asked to be on a panel regarding California wildfires and our experience with them and lessons learned. So I discussed the mountain fire. I talked and its impact on our purveyors. I also talked about the most recent Palisades fire and its impact in terms of PSPS events. I mentioned that we had run on backup power for 5 days, and that was quite remarkable, I think, and well received in that room. With regard to the mountain fire, I also talked about the communication strategies that we employed quickly when we saw some media coverage that was not entirely accurate. And the fact that we went around in the community. I know you went to various meetings, Board of Supervisors, community meetings. We went to briefings and just let the community know we were invested and involved. Lastly, I spoke about Assembly Bill 367, Assemblymember Bennett's efforts to require Ventura County water suppliers to have backup power. That's of great interest to water agencies statewide because he does intend to make it a statewide effort next year. So that's essentially what I covered. I was on the panel with a supervisor from Sonoma County, as well as a representative of the California Natural Resources Agency, and it was moderated by a representative from the California State Association of Counties. So that's my report.
Good job, Charlotte.
Thank you.
If I could brag about Charlotte also for a second. We were talking about this. I went with Charlotte to the first time we were both at Camarosa to this event. And in 6 years, she went from attendee to panelist. And I think it's just a testament to her effectiveness. And I think it's a recognition of folks across the state of the kind of impact she has. So I think it's just a reminder for all of us how lucky we are to have Charlotte on staff.
Absolutely.
Charlotte. Our final item is 14, and I'm handling this one. So on a rainy day a couple weeks ago, we were thrilled to welcome the county CEO, Dr. Savette Johnson, the assistant county CEO, Mike Pettit, and special assistant to the CEO, Jeanette Sanchez Palacios. We did a 2-hour briefing and tour. We talked about some really important issues that really dovetail with the issues that Charlotte was just speaking about, public safety power shutoffs and their impact on the county, our opportunities and history of partnership with the county. You know, the county oversees 3 of our retail purveyors. We have 3 county waterworks districts, 119 and 38. Obviously, Director Paul is very familiar with that since he used to run them, as well as the county's role in the Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency, which has significant implications for our existing ASR wellfield, as well as future opportunities for groundwater banking and development, as well as the many ways in which they're plugged into the county. It was a really friendly, collegial, fun conversation, even with the weather not cooperating, or maybe cooperating. It made for a great photo shot there. As a follow-up to that, we did make a congressional funding request for the Ventura interconnection. I alluded earlier to seeking additional funding. That's what I was referencing. And we needed a support letter from a local mayor on short order. Conveniently, Jeanette Sanchez Palacios, in addition to being a special assistant to the county CEO, is also the mayor of the city of Ventura. And she was able to turn around a support letter for that in a day, which is pretty much unheard of. So I think it was a real testament to the value of investing time in building these relationships. And the county staff, you know, they were very aware of our engagement on things like the mountain fire, and our attendance at those meetings. And they just really value their relationship with us, just as we value their relationship with them, and see a lot of opportunities for collaboration and mutual benefit moving forward. So I wanted to highlight that. And that is the first ever MSR highlights.
Okay, thank you.
Well done.
Question, this meeting occurred because you approached them or CEO's office approached you?
I think we approached them. I initially reached out to Dr. Johnson. She attended the community leaders briefing event we had in September. I know you weren't on the board then, but it was a big event countywide, regionally, with me moderating a panel with Assemblymember Bennett and Metropolitan Board Chair Don Ortega. It was done in conjunction with Metropolitan, and that really served as a good opportunity to get to know some of these folks better. And so after that, I reached out to Dr. Johnson and invited them out. So,
Well, I believe in building relationships, and it's great that we're able to do that. Doing a good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board on this item? Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and go around the board. Jackie, do you have any items that you'd like to bring up? Yeah. Director Quady.
Number 18. 21/22.
Okay.
28.
Okay.
37.
37.
39.
39.
49.
49.
57.
57.
61.
61.
69. and 77.
77.
Oh, wait a minute, some more. I've got one that's a range of values, 79 through 83.
79 through 83.
87.
87.
I think the way we used to do it was faster.
I'm not asking the rest of the board because he's covered all of them.
92/93 and 97.
3 is 97. I'm good. Director Robert, did you have any items?
21.
21. Okay, he's got it. And Director Pacala?
I just have a general comment on item 2.
Item 2. Okay, we'll start with item 2.
Oh. Well, I see Director McMillan is very, very busy with appointments by Metropolitan Board. I see you are on what, 16 committees and 3 subcommittees. And with your involvement at Metropolitan will help us a great deal to build relationships.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Next to you, I see our vice president is also going to the Metropolitan Committee meetings. And our staff has been attending meetings, like our general manager and other senior management staff. From my perspective, all this is good for us to get our goals achieved. Again, there are 2 big things in my mind. One is the treated water rate structure is important for us. The other one would be the water supply resiliency from Metropolitan to our Calleguas Municipal Water District. I just wanted to thank board members who are attending and our staff, management staff, doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, number 18.
Okay, I just wanted to check on the status of AB 367 amendments.
Yes, Charlotte, please.
Thank you for the question, Vice President Quady. So last week, we received some very substantive amendments from Assemblymember Bennett's office. As I think I relayed last time, we wrote a very detailed comment letter, had a discussion with him. He had read the letter point by point, and he came back, his office did, with some amendments that did address many of the purveyor concerns that we raised. I've since sent those amendments. I got them Friday to our purveyors for their feedback. I'm slowly trickling in, but I would say that it's a good faith effort on Assemblyman Bennett's part to address many of the concerns, and his office has said more than once, this is an ongoing conversation. We still are open to input and feedback. So feeling very positive.
Good, I'm glad to recognize that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks.
Okay, item 21 and 22.
22, I just, this is federal advocacy. Can we submit the LBPS proposal via the CDS also?
You know, we did not. We submitted the Ventura interconnection to Senators Padilla and Schiff. So we decided to kind of divide and conquer those two and have Brownlee keep pursuing the project.
I was just thinking that since she didn't have well.
Nobody got their funding, so.
Yeah, it's
right.
And if just a double, it doesn't matter either, does it?
No, and I actually asked that question of the legislative representatives who we actually met with in DC, and they suggested sort of that divide and conquer strategy. But for Padilla and Schiff, they coordinate on the project, so it made sense to submit the same one to both.
Okay, very good.
Okay, item 28.
I think I just had a comment for this. I was impressed with Rachel Davis is another concept from MODOCs. It was a good example of a regional district floating all retail boats, basically for water loss control and technical assistance. So I thoroughly enjoyed the presentations that were made.
Yeah, we get very positive feedback from our purveyors, particularly when we bring in outside speakers that they might not otherwise have access to or know about, to kind of cross-pollinate and share ideas regionally.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Item 37.
Okay, this one is simple. I think, where did 0.23 acre feet go from the production?
This would have been in February. We were probably still producing a little bit at the end of the shutdown. Yeah, I'm looking to Omar for confirmation.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that was still during, so the groundwater report lags a month behind the overall monthly status report. The rest of this report covers March. This particular section covers February. So we would have been on the tail end of that metropolitan shutdown in early February. So obviously the very tail end based on the 0.23 acre feet.
See, okay, okay.
39 Lake Sherwood Pump Station Rehabilitation.
Yeah, I was just curious about the differences between the regular check valve, I guess I use it as the tilted disc valve. It sounds like one is used for low pulsating flows and one's more stable. What's the
difference?
Application there? What's the application? Why is that best the application?
Yeah, so the tilted check valve was just replaced. What is the difference between what's there right now and what was installed? I'd have to get back to you because I don't remember what's installed. I do know what the new backflow check valve is just newer and more reliable. But I have to get back to you on what is installed so I can tell you what the difference is. So I have.
Yeah, I was just curious because I'd never heard of that one, so I wanted to learn something.
Yeah, so check valves typically many are tilted, meaning, in other words, they're not perpendicular to the flow. They are at an angle and they are tilted. That's where the name comes, tilted disc valve. What is there right now, or what was replaced, I should say? I'd have to get back to you and tell you the difference.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fernando, item 49.
49 is Lindero Pump Station Rehab.
Yes.
And I just wanted, I wrote down here, does this happen variably or is it becoming more common? And that has to do with the manufacturer change? What was it?
The generator? Is it the generator?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a generator.
Yes, so this is a 3 megawatt generator. So this is a big generator.
Bigger than any single generator we currently possess.
Wow.
Yes. So we were working with Caterpillar during design. They were the one that was identified to be able to provide a tier 4 final.
And
Right.
just for everyone's background, the tiers are levels of kind of air quality control, emissions control, with the higher number being
Most
restrictive, more restrictive. Tier 4 is the highest that's out there. I've never heard of a tier.
the highest right now. So Caterpillar told us that they could provide what's called tier 4 final, meaning it would not require, similar to a car that needs to be smogged every couple of years. This tier final would not require a periodic testing. There is a system that is what's called tier 4 compliant that does require periodic testing that has to be reported to the local air pollution control district. While we were out to bid, the Caterpillar notified us that they were not going to be able to provide the tier 4 final generator. So we had to revise our bid documents, allowing for a tier 4 compliance system. That does open it up to a couple of other vendors that may be able to provide that. But it means that we will also have to do some additional maintenance once the generator is installed.
And there's no other companies that could provide a tier 4 final.
There aren't.
They were the only one and they stopped doing it.
Yeah, I was just trying to
be a.
It sounds like a special case. It wasn't necessarily a trend of any kind, which is what I was thinking. So
And at this level, this size, it is. I mean, it's a large generator and it's not something that is regularly produced, sitting on a warehouse that's ready to ship. So it can be about a 2-year lead time for that generator to arrive on the site.
Okay. I'm just sensitive about these some backlog order stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, lead time's definitely an issue.
Yes.
All right, there's one more for Fernando. Item 57, Mars Farms S&P Discharge Station.
Yes.
I just wanted to be reminded, is this that farm housing on-site waste?
It is not. It is not. This is a group of ag farmers that got together and have applied to connect to the SMP. So they're planning to build a desalter to get better water quality, to end up with a better yield on their product with a better water that's provided to their crops. So this is separate from the Cal-Am farm worker housing.
AmCal.
Excuse me, AmCal. I was confused them.
Okay.
Yeah, AmCal ones, this is this one.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, so there are 2 different projects. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Can I have a follow-up question on this desalter?
Yes.
So you said the farmers are building a desalter?
Farmers are, yes. It's led by,
Out on the plain, kind of near Cal State Channel Islands.
that's correct.
They produce shallow groundwater in that area of the Pleasant Valley Basin is really impacted by salts, and they get a combination of groundwater and recycled water from Camarillo and Camarosa. And
Okay.
they do a lot of substrate farming. So in pots, they want to control every aspect of the water quality down there. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Grants and funding opportunities, item 61.
This is probably me, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to know the status of the amendment.
So we have now, after a 21-month process, submitted with DWR asking us just for new stuff all the time, submitted the amendment. They haven't asked us for anything new yet, and the ball is in their court. We are hopeful that I will be bringing an amendment to the board relatively soon, and that will increase our funding by over $1 million, I believe.
Wow. Okay. Next one is mine. Item 67, I have a general comment. It's O&M continues to focus providing maintenance, repairs, troubleshooting, identified during LBFWP and well field operations, as well as addressing the minor corrective issues identified in the annual Aqua Joint Powers Assurance Authority inspections report. I just want to say, when we've gone out, done facility tours, I've noticed a lot of broken items, rust, things like that I think should be taken care of before they get to that point. For example, there was the shade over the ammonia tanks at the well field, very rusty. My opinion, with my maintenance, preventative and corrective background, we shouldn't be letting our facilities get to that point. We should be taking care of rust. When it starts to show up, we should be doing coatings. We should be taking care of our equipment so it lasts, or facilities so they last longer. If we see rust that's popping off the metal, the paint included, it's gone on too far and somebody should have spotted it. Going back to what I mentioned about how we need to maintain and the standards that we need for our housing, it's the same thing for our facilities, for our pipes, for anything. I've noticed broken light fixtures, open conduits, that's electrical hazards, lots of rust. We should be spot treating before they get to the point where the rust is popping up. And that's kind of what I wanted to mention here.
Understood, and Omar is on it.
And maybe that's something we can add to the along with the admin code, along with the housing, is just in general a certain standard of routine inspections and upkeep for our facilities.
And if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
That's one of the big lifts that Omar's been doing since he arrived in November. And really just in the last couple of weeks, the system maintenance supervisor has created a painting and coating crew who's kind of a sub crew whose main job, they're going to be a task force that's going to be doing that kind of stuff.
Good.
So we're in alignment. We hear you loud and clear.
And, there's things like down in our filtration facility, there was large pieces of rust coming off of the pipe. Things like that. How much rust coming off is going to affect the integrity of that pipe when it's under pressure. So, that's all things to take into account once they get to a certain point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if Omar, if you showed Christine, I'd like her to see that rust down there. That was pretty bad.
I was going to just make a comment. Preventive maintenance is always important in infrastructure. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I see it as, it's risk mitigation, right?
Mhm.
No questions. Understood.
Yeah, and going back to the well field, right? I know we're going out to bid to replace that. It should have never got to that point. It's steel beams. We should be treating the rust and taking care of it before it's at the point where we need to replace it because it wasn't adequately maintained. So that's mine.
Understood.
Item 69.
I just had a quick question about that. It seems like it's written that did we replace the electrical contractor?
Oh, no, that electrical. That's a typo. What should that say?
Contactor.
Compactor.
Thought as much.
Sorry about that.
Okay. And then,
Yeah.
we had a presentation, 77 congrats to Greg Staby and Cesar Romero.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Item 77,
That was 77.
that was 77.
And Cesar Romero.
Sorry, missed it. 79 through 83.
This is a race 79 through 83, 84, 85 reflect what the staff is doing, in going to outside areas and getting, either new perspectives or ideas. So I just wanted to say that's great to have a second set of eyes on stuff that we're doing. I really appreciate the initiative that's shown them. So, this, Coupa conference sounds very helpful as well.
87, staff processed and paid 301 invoices totaling approximately 24.6 million. And, so
This is a question for Dan. I guess I don't know that if I've been, I get mixed up a lot with, fixed versus volumetric ratios targets for water agencies. So when I looked at the February numbers that were here, what Calleguas sold and what they paid to, Met, it sounded like 12 to 13% was kind of low to me, as opposed to what our 8-month budget shows as being what I think it's generally at 27%. So is there a reason for that? Am I missing something? Dan there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to figure out what numbers you're talking about.
Talking about, Calleguas sold, see, I have 8.6 million compared to.
Yeah, so you gotta remember that in February, we paid the Met December bill. And on that bill was the $12.5 million in prepaid water. So the invoices were a little bit higher at this point during this month.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Gonna skew, you'll see that when I go over the financial statements too. The ratios are all changing significantly because of the big pay that we made in February.
Well, you shut me up, so that's.
What's 92 through 93, third equate.
Just cyber, it's great news there and great work. Thank you.
And 97, hardware and software.
Is this a replacement? Is this weather hardened?
They are, but they've been up there for a substantial number of years and they just deteriorate over time. So the external surfaces of the radios themselves are only good for so many years in the sunlight. And the UV starts breaking through them, and what happens is like they usually get a little bit of water inside of them from the rain. And that's what might go ahead and crashing out. So they're the best devices we can have for the environment that we have, and that's just a life cycle aspect with them.
Yeah, that's great for me here because I'm just thinking about if something could get knocked out and I didn't want it to be knocked out as opposed to it's just a long-term wear thing, then that's different.
Yeah, and that's why we always have spares on hand so we can replace them immediately when they go down.
Excellent.
Goes back to preventative maintenance. But talking about the cameras, I was actually also gonna ask, how much coverage do we have? How many blind spots do we have? And are we looking at having better coverage with our cameras at our facility?
The very broad, we have to be able to provide you more information to.
That might be closer. Blind spots, so,
Probably.
yeah.
But to me, I guess I would just mention, one of the things that I heard about is that people were talking about how having visuals were easy places to catch early starts on fires.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what our spread is on cameras, but that's just something where you can think from.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'd like to hear more about, our facilities, security and what we're doing and what we have covered and or not.
Okay, well, we can look at agendizing that for a future closed session.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do you have any other questions or comments for the monthly status report? Okay, thank you, everybody. 7A2, February 2025 financial report, Dan Smith.
All right, let me just get this up and going. All right, I'm assuming we got the front page showing to everybody right now.
Yes.
So we are looking at the February 2025 financial statements. In the month of February, we didn't sell as much water as we had budgeted, but overall, we're still doing quite well as far as our water sales. We had budgeted be about 48,900 acre feet through this time of the year, and we're still sitting at 52,161. So we are still selling more than we had anticipated. With that means our water revenues, net of the costs, are still higher than what we had budgeted as well. So we have $27.8 million we've made on the sale of water after we take out the cost of the water, and we'd only budgeted 26.7, so we're still looking good. Looking at the other stuff, the year-to-date admin expenses, we are doing well there. We're not spending all of the money. We had budgeted 19.2, and we've only spent 16.7 through the month of February. And taxes and revenues are coming in very strong still, especially the interest. We're at $13 million, and we had budgeted to be at 10.6, so that continues to be a plus for us. Leaving us to have good operating income with the savings and the extra revenue that's been coming in from the additional water sales. Our operating income right now is at $24.6 million, and we had been budgeted at 18.6. And something that's nice to see is our principal and interest, and it's going to be happening for this year, is going to be less than what we've budgeted because we refinanced those bonds, the 2010 Bs, and that has definitely lowered our interest expense, which is going to be a good thing to see as we're going forward. And it has a very positive effect on our debt service coverage, when we're looking out into the future years. Looking at the month of February, you can see we were a little bit short on the water revenues, but we made up because we didn't spend all the money on the water expenses. We saved a little bit of money compared to the budget for the admin expenses, but we had quite a bit come in on the other operating, non-operating revenues. About $650,000 of that was from our BAB subsidy. So those 2010 B bonds, we finally got our last payment for the first half of this fiscal year, which was about $650,000. We're done with those, but we did get it finally in from the IRS. And this is one of the reasons that we wanted to kind of get out of there is it was hard to get the money from the IRS. They took a lot to get it into them and then for them to get us the money. It's kind of like getting the refunds from when you file your taxes. They're not quick giving your money back. And then we were pretty close on our expenses. So overall, even for the month, we were budgeting to have a deficit of $1.2 million, but we ended up at $129,000 with some of this additional revenues that came in. So overall, the month was looking really good. Looking at the cash and investments, you can see that we did decrease quite a bit this month, and that is all related to the $12.5 million that we had sent to Metropolitan for that prepaid water. So we took money out of investments and put it into cash and then sent the cash off to Met. Looking at the ratios, and this is what I was kind of talking about, Director Quady, you can see our current ratio has jumped up almost 3 points, from 6.9 to 9.9. And that really just has to do with us getting that additional $12 million off the liability side because we were holding a liability there for the last 3 months. And so it kind of, with these first two, it really kind of tweaked them for the few months while we had that liability sitting out there. But now that it's gone, our ratios are looking back to where they normally are. The debt ratio did also increase because our liabilities increased. The decrease in the liability has a big effect on all three of these ratios, bigger than the loss of the $12 million in cash. It's a bigger percentage of the liabilities. Looking at the debt service coverage, you will see that it did go down a little from last month. It's going to start going down for the next few months because of the way the property taxes are. They don't come in evenly. That sends us with a spike in certain months, and then it slowly comes back down. Plus, we didn't have the best month in water sales for the month of February, which did affect the debt service coverage. And the same goes with the times interest earned. We didn't have as much funds coming in to make that coverage, but it didn't decrease overall in a very significant way. So that's all I have for the financial statements here, unless someone has some questions on it. I am gonna bring up the actual PDF so I can talk to Director Pacala, sorry, to see what he was looking for as far as change to the financial statements.
Well, I can make a comment. When you look at page 107 and 108, where you're comparing the income and the expenditures, you're showing a fiscal year 24-25 budget column and 8 months. My question to you was, is it possible to add another column where you would show, or we will show, end of the fiscal year 24-25? That way, to me, it gives a good understanding of where we end up by the end of the year.
Hang on one. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely add more columns to this. Do you want it 24-25? Are we looking at so this is the sheet that you're talking about. So right now we're looking at 8 months of the 24-25 budget, along with 8 months of the 24-25 through February of expenses.
Right. My question to you is, is it possible to add another column for the year end?
For last year's year end or this?
24.
So you want to see how we're progressing against the overall 12 month.
Right.
See, okay. Yes, I can definitely add that.
Yeah, that's all I was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Pacala. Do we have other questions from the board? Yeah, thank you, Dan. Okay, moving on to item 3, Calleguas operational response to a broken chlorine container valve. Julio Reyes, operations supervisor.
Yes, so this is why we have this unusual prop in the middle of our boardroom. We thought it would be helpful, as Julio is going to talk about a broken chlorine container valve response that our staff capably handled in February.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the issue that we had in January when the Lakeport water filtration plant was online. Okay, I need to get a little closer. I'm going to give away how bad my vision is. The Lakeport water filtration plant and the Las Posas well field were online because of the Department of Water Resources and Metropolitan Water District's foothill feeder shutdown, which required the repair of a 78-inch diameter valve, which delivers raw water to the Joseph Jensen. And that treatment plant delivers treated water to the Calleguas service area. Also supplement to that, we had our own internal inspection of the Calleguas conduit north branch. So at the base of the Santa Susana tunnel, we have 2 large diameter pipes that run parallel to each other. One is what we call the north branch, and the other that runs south is called the south branch. So far east into the distribution system, unit 1 was a segment that was isolated, dewatered, and entered for a structural integrity inspection. That reduced the capacity of water that we can import. And so therefore we had to turn on the Lakeport water filtration plant and the Las Posas field to supplement those deliveries. Okay, a little background on chlorine disinfection. Calleguas uses chlorine for disinfection. It's actually a regulatory requirement. Chlorine occurs in 3 different forms. Calcium hypochlorite, which is a solid, typically in the percent strength of 65 to 70%. It is typically used for disinfection after installation or repairs of distribution lines. It also occurs as sodium hypochlorite. The percent strength is broader. It can be as low as 6%, which is what you'll see in household bleach at the grocery store, and all the way up to 19 or 20%, which is more along the industrial application. Most water systems that use sodium hypochlorite for water treatment use around 12 to 12.5%. And lastly, elemental chlorine gas, which is 100% pure. That's what we use here at Calleguas. That's what you see on the far right of that photo there. So some of you have attended the tours that I gave with the Lake Bard Water Filtration Plant. And on occasion, when I give those tours, neighboring water system will ask me, typically it's an operator, well, why is it that you use chlorine gas? Because it's hazardous relative to sodium hypochlorite. And there's basically two answers to that. The first one is Lake Bard Water Filtration Plant, as well as the Las Posas well field, are not online most of the year. And with that, pure chlorine stores, it has a very good shelf life. It doesn't decompose because there's nothing else in it to react. Sodium hypochlorite, however, has a very high tendency to decay over time, especially in the warmer months. Also, at full plant capacity at the Lake Bard Water Filtration Plant, 65 MGD, million gallons per day, and at a targeted chlorine dose of 3.5 parts per million, which is about average, we go through about 1,900 pounds per day of pure chlorine. If we were to use a 12% sodium hypochlorite strength, given the same plant production and the same dose, we would be using over 12,000 gallons of hypochlorite a day. That would mean we would have a very large tank farm here. And then again, when we turn the plant offline, that tank farm of hypochlorite would slowly degrade until the next plant run. So it's just more practical to use chlorine, although it's more hazardous. Okay. At the Lake Bard Water Filtration Plant, as well as the Las Posas well field, we store 20 one-ton chlorine containers. I think I'll come around here now and talk about. This is actually a practice container that we use, that I used for the operations staff to train them how to connect and disconnect these valves to the chlorine manifold. I think everyone can see. Notice that these valves are aligned vertically. Everyone on this side, notice these tubes diverge vertically. Now I'm going to spin it around, excuse me. That's what they're connected to. Okay, now. I should also mention that pressurized containers, there are 3 different sizes: 150-pound cylinders, 1-ton containers, which is what we use, and rail cars. They are all only filled to 80% capacity liquid. The remaining 20% is the compressed gas, and there's a reason for that. If these containers were filled at full capacity, the liquid chlorine would have no room for expansion and contraction, and the vessels would rupture. And so they are filled by the supplier to only 80% capacity, so that compressed gas can expand and contract as the ambient air temperature gets warmer and colder. So understanding that, notice how these valves are aligned vertically here. These dip tubes on the backside, if the container is filled at 80% capacity, the dip tube that's going to the top is going to be on the gas side. Conversely, the dip tube that's going downward is going to be on the liquid side. So that's really important. At the Las Posas well field, the facility was designed for liquid draw as well as gas draw. However, at the Lake Bard Water Filtration Plant, we do not have evaporators like we do at the well field. So we only have the ability to draw from the gas side. Okay, wanted to talk about these 1-ton chlorine valves because this is where the issues were when we were in operation in January. So to the right, I took a photo of a 1-ton container valve fully assembled. Then I disassembled it and snapped that photo. It's still disassembled. I couldn't put it back together. So the ton container valve is a bronze body, and right above it is a Monel stem. And then you'll notice 2 brass color rings, and between them are 2 white color rings. Those are the packing material. And at the very top is a packing nut. And so the way I describe it to the operators is that think of it as an ice cream sandwich on a warm summer day, preferably vanilla. Pushing down on this ice cream sandwich on the wafer, and the ice cream is displacing outward. And so similar to that, we'll tighten down on the packing nut when it's fully assembled. And as we tighten down on the packing nut, it displaces the Teflon gasket outward into the interior of the body, as well around the Monel stem. And that is how these valves are airtight. There are issues, however. Sometimes the supplier, they do replace these valves periodically, but sometimes the valves do fail or they're compromised, which is what happened in January. So typically the two situations that occur is both of the situations are called spinner valves. However, the valves are not spinning. What's actually spinning are the stems. And so an operator can torque down on the valve in a clockwise position, and then the threading on the Monel stem will be inserted into the body, which is also threaded, until an operator feels resistance and they know that the seat has bottomed out. The gas is not going to be flowing at that time. However, what happens sometimes is cross-threading, because the body is made of bronze, and so it's softer. And so the cross-threading, when an operator is torquing down, they will feel resistance initially, followed by the loss of resistance. This is one of the spinner valve situations. Another spinner valve situation is when an operator is torquing down, typically too much. We do have torque wrenches that are set so we don't inadvertently break them. Where if an operator is torquing down too much, the Monel stem will split in half. And that's a more hazardous situation. Okay, talk about discovering the spinner valve. In January 27th, the operations personnel discovered the valve issue while switching out spent ton containers. One of the 1-ton cylinder valves, as I just described, would not seat closed and it continued to spin. This indicates that the valve may be completely seated closed, therefore depressurizing and disconnecting from the manifold could potentially be an issue. So in this photo here, we have George Gonzalez, who's directly standing behind David Hernandez when he actually discovered the spinner valve. So he was supposed to be disconnecting it from the manifold so we can swap out the spent containers with new ones. However, he wasn't able to depressurize the system because the spinner valve was slowly discharging through. Okay, I'm going to be talking about terms like manifold pressure, establishing a vacuum. So before I do that, I thought I'd kind of illustrate how the chlorine feed systems work at Lakewater Water Filtration Plant as well as the Las Posas well field. So I put a little legend together on the right. There's a perforated line, which represents the system under vacuum, and the solid line represents the positive pressure system. So let's start all the way at the 1-ton containers. The 1-ton containers are all manifolded or connected together, and then directly downstream, I should say under positive pressure, there's a common header piping, still under pressure. That header piping makes its way to the vacuum regulator. The vacuum regulator is a device with an orifice in the center, and there's a plunger that's pushing down, seated against the orifice, maintaining the positive pressure. Let's go up to the top of the image here. You can see the centrifugal pump. So we have a centrifugal pump that draws water from the distribution system and pushes water to its point of application to the far right. Now, between the point of application in the water treatment plant and the centrifugal pump is a venturi. And the venturi is designed to establish a vacuum. However, the vacuum is only going to occur under dynamic conditions, which is to say that venturi is not going to start a vacuum until the pump is started and the water is flowing. Talk a little bit about what a venturi is. If you have a pipe, and if you reduce the diameter of the pipe, what's happening as you reduce the diameter of the pipe is the velocity is increasing. As the velocity increases, the pressure decreases. So there is a relationship there. So understanding that, if we continue to throttle down the diameter of the pipe, we know that the velocities will increase and the operating pressures will decrease. Well, we can continue to do that to a point where the operating pressure gets to zero and then drops below zero. That would be negative pressure or a vacuum. So that's what a venturi is. So the venturi is plumbed to a chlorinator under vacuum, and the chlorinator is nothing more than a mechanism that throttles chlorine gas under a vacuum condition. So we use it to control the flow of how much chlorine we want to use once we determine what our dose is going to be. From the chlorinator, the piping goes to the vacuum regulator. So now we've come full circle. So the vacuum, starting at the venturi, it's going through the chlorinator and it's making its way to the vacuum regulator. Remember, the vacuum regulator has a plunger that's pushing down, maintaining the positive pressure. The vacuum pulls the plunger up, therefore allowing the positive pressure gas to go through the orifice and into the vacuum feed system. So this is it seems like it's so unnecessarily complicated simply to feed chlorine, but there's a reason why. The majority of the chlorine feed system is under a vacuum. And it's under a vacuum because in the event that the piping failed where it is piped under vacuum, we would have air going into the system. If we didn't have the system under vacuum and if it were all conveyed through positive pressure, then if we had a break in a pipe, we would be discharging chlorine into the environment. So that answers why we have it under vacuum. However, there's a part of the system that's under positive pressure. How do we handle that? What we have are electrically actuated valves that are connected to sensors. And these sensors, when they detect chlorine, they send a signal to these electrically actuated valves, which are mounted on they're actually just actuators. And they're mounted onto the valves here, and they're triggered to close. And so while they're triggered to close the leak at the source, we're still maintaining a vacuum, and so the manifold pressure will drop to zero. Okay, preparing to remediate the issue. On February 5th, key staff and the hazmat team held a tabletop discussion to review and identify the possible scenarios and solutions relative to those scenarios in addressing the valve problem. This was followed up by a preliminary investigation to rule out possible scenarios. So during the investigation, it was determined that the valve was broken closed, but not completely seated. And you can see it in the photos. The photo to the far left has, after we went in there and dropped the operating pressure to zero, about an hour later, the operating pressure is about 15 pounds per square inch. And then several hours later, it finally stabilized to about 60 PSI. So what this investigation did was it really gave us good information as to the extent of the failure of the valve. And is it discharging too much? Can we control it when we go in there and disconnect? Okay, preparing to remediate the issue. On February 5th, we formulated and defined a strategy to address the valve. Also, the district's hazmat team was involved to support the effort as well as to utilize the situation as an exercise. Okay, let's talk a little bit about staging or positioning for the event. The manager of operations and maintenance, the manager of human resources and risk management, emergency response coordinator, and someone help me with that one. Thank you very much. They were positioned at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. Okay, the operations supervisor, that would be myself. I was positioned in the control room where I was observing the activity through a closed circuit security camera. And the entry team, well, they went into the chlorine building to get the work done. And the hazmat team, was staged just outside of the chlorine building to provide decontamination support after the work was done. Okay, off to the left, we have Tori Rand, and she's giving Patrick Augusta a hand donning his PPE. And on the right image, we have Daniel Cohen, and he's providing safety briefing to the decon team, to the entry team. And that is David Hernandez to the left, and to the center is Patrick Augusta, and to the far right is Jose Tamayo. They're going to be the entry team. Okay, resolving the valve issue. So the entry team established a vacuum and depressurized the chlorine manifold. After the manifold pressure gauge went to 0, the entry team would disconnect the ton container from the manifold and cap the ton containers. Okay, resolving the valve issue. After the entry team disconnected the ton container valves from the manifold, they did observe a small quantity of chlorine being emitted from the valve in question. So after it was disconnected, a lead gasket and a cap was applied. Shortly thereafter, we contacted the chlorine supplier to get the ton container off the property. And here we have Patrick Augusta. He's standing directly behind David Hernandez as David Hernandez is doing the work. Okay, so what led to a successful spinner valve event? Well, capital investments. Also training. The district provides training to the operators and O&M staff that handle chlorine. Dedication. As the operations supervisor, I get to observe the dedication and the talent and the skill that our O&M group has. Brainstorming and planning and collaboration all led to a seamless execution that was without incident. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Julio. Do we have a question from the board? Dr. Quaid.
Yeah, these containers will arrive that way, right? It just happens that that one was delivered.
Yes, as a matter of fact, this is the second container that I've had this issue with. The first one that I received years ago, it was already closed. And so when I went to go open it, it was not opening. And so fortunately, it was already closed. So I just gave them a call on and asked them to get it out of here. One thing that I talked to the chlorine suppliers, this is again, is how frequently are these valves maintained? Because sometimes they come with more resistance, like you could tell that they're aged. And then sometimes they actuate better.
That was actually going to be my question is, our supplier, do we have a good relationship with the supplier that brings these containers? And
yes.
And could we have a requirement that they do maintenance or replace the valves prior to delivery?
Yeah, I don't know if we could have a requirement. That's something that I could ask. I'm certain that there are probably requirements out there for them to replace or maintain the valves.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's transport issues too, as well as the age and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's transport conditions, how the tank has been handled in the past and all that stuff. These are all reusable, right?
Yeah, they're all reusable. They have a certain life that they have on them, and then they will replace them.
The last question I have is, so you still have those, like, I thought they were called K kits, but maybe there's something else now.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Kits that you actually.
Oh, yes, yes.
Are they like kits or?
B-kits, right. As I mentioned earlier, there's 3 different size pressurized containers, 150-pound cylinders that stand about 5 feet tall, 1-ton containers that are about 7 feet long, and rail cars. And so A kits for the 150-pound cylinders, B kits are what we have here for the 1-ton containers, and C kits are for the rail cars. And so, yeah, we do have those kits. Remember earlier I was talking about the stem shearing in half. And so we have a unique component that we got outside of the B kit. It's part of the B kit. It's like an addition to it, where the concern would be if the Monell valve, Monell stem snapped in half, that it could push outward. Remember how I was talking about torquing down on the packing nut? So there's a possibility if the Monell stem snaps in half, that the positive pressure would push it outward. So we procured a couple of devices that basically hold that stem in place in the event that that would happen.
Thank you.
I'm assuming that anytime anyone's in that machine, opening these valves, they're wearing PPE and all that.
Yes, the district does have a policy that
CBAs.
Yeah, SCBA, when we're doing work, even when we're entering and everything's connected, air purifying respirators, as well as there are procedures where entrants are calling the operations control center and verifying that there are no outstanding alarms. So they're verifying that, as well as portable chlorine devices that we just clip onto our belts.
It's concerning that these valves are the single point of failures for these tanks.
Mhm.
And it would be nice if there was a valve ahead of that operating valve that can wear out as an emergency shut off for that, you know. But that's, I guess that's just not something the manufacturer has.
That would be something like two inline valves, you open one, then the other.
Yeah, well,
One fails, you have the other.
if, as a safety engineer, there's a valve that you operate for normal use. And having that be your last shutoff valve is concerning. If there was an emergency shutoff valve that doesn't get operated under normal conditions that wear out, it would be nice that, oh, this one's leaking, you can shut it off before it. But I guess that's just not how this company operates, or is it, I don't know if it's a standard or.
That sounds like it might be something staff could add in.
It's an interesting
Design.
point. I totally get what you're saying.
I don't see how it could be retrofitted for something that's an exchange system, and it's something the manufacturer would have to implement to their system for valves or tanks that they swap out for other people as well. I don't see it being something that we could implement. It's just an unfortunate thing that I guess these are standard in the industry.
Yes, the valves are standard, yeah.
And these tanks.
Basically one manufacturer. Yeah. Yes.
How many 1-ton cylinders do we have at each location, ASR and the Bottleneck?
We have 20 1-ton containers at each facility.
Same, 21.
Yes.
Do you also maintain some spares at any given time or just whatever is in?
So the 20 is 10 tons that are on the scales that are either on in service or standby once the in-service bank is exhausted. And the other 10 are what we call on the floor, ready to be swapped out once the ones that are in service that are exhausted.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you monitored the pressure to confirm the failure of the valve. Was there any floor sensor or anything that indicated that there was an amount leaking?
Are you asking if there was like a
floor sensor? Yeah.
Floor, because they're on a scale.
Right. So we didn't have a release. What the problem was that when we went to go disconnect, so I would think of it as your garden hose connected to your garden hose bib. And if you have one of those nozzles at the end of it, right? If you're going to disconnect your garden hose bib while there's water in there, it's going to release some water, right? So you need to close your garden hose bib, and then open the nozzle to release the pressure. What if your garden hose bib's not closing? That was the problem.
That valve, that's where our hose connects to.
Yes.
So technically, we could add a second smaller hose with our own valve on it that we can close and leave it like that if the other one's leaking, right?
Yeah, we do have, so I'll kind of point it out over here. We do have, this is all kind of hard plumbed. And then from this ton container, this is a flexible connector right there.
Yeah.
They're made out of copper. So we can bend those flexible connectors and fix them onto the ton container valves. I'm still not following.
Like in your scenario, I think the secondary valve after the main valve would have to be removed from our system and left on the tank.
Exactly. So part of our system could have a second valve in line that you could disconnect from in case the other one fails.
Yeah, the secondary valve would be ours.
Yeah.
And so if a primary valve on the container fails, right, we would just give them our.
Give them our valve and say, it's leaking, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, what I would consider is, as I mentioned, we have these electrically mounted actuators, and there's a yoke assembly that they fasten to. So we would just have to make sure, if we considered anything like that, that there's no, it doesn't interfere what it needs to do.
The idea is probably not as quickly implemented or as potentially successful as adding a valve like that, but maybe something that would benefit the community as an industry as a whole is maybe if we see a deficiency like this, we could write some sort of white paper and then get support from other agencies that use similar products to identify a safety concern and convey that to the manufacturer, just as an industry, need and request, like we would like to see this. And other people seem to have the same feeling.
Safety standards.
Yeah, there is kind of a region that the chlorine supplier has, and there's nobody really else around this area here. So
we're the only, that has 100% customer base, maybe that gives us more weight to request something like that.
More leverage. But that's the importance of knowing that it came from a supplier. And then if there's a seating problem with the valve, that it's technically not been ours, it was theirs, they sent it to us.
Yeah.
To me, it's been that way for years, that you use the B kit when you feel there's a risk of leaking of any kind. Or if you have experienced a valve failure from the supplier, our response could be to cap that and send it back. And that'd be perfect safety.
Yeah.
If I understand the B kit correctly, I don't think it would have helped in this continuous release situation.
the B kit is for releases.
For all releases or just to prevent the stem?
Well, that adapter that I mentioned is to prevent it, but most of the kit.
It would fully seat that stem.
Yes, it would make sure that it doesn't discharge out from the positive pressure. But a lot of the B kit has to do with releases. So for example, mounted onto the valve, it's like a metal cup with a Viton ring. You push it against there and you leverage what's called the strong back and you just tighten down on it. And that's once you already have a release. There are other pieces in there. It's like a chain with a Viton catch on it. If you have a kind of breach on the side. Yeah, so there's different, because it's pretty large. There's a lot of, the way I describe it is like when you go to your auto mechanic, depending on the nature of the problem, they have a bunch of different tools. Yeah. And so that's basically what a B kit is.
How many of those do we have?
We have about 4.
4 B kits.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, don't take our instinct to workshop stuff as to detract from the impressive, response that you all had. I mean, not congratulations, but well done on that. Very impressive. And I support if you see something that I think that we could influence to the manufacturer, I think we should communicate it.
Thank you.
But thank you. Yeah. Great job.
Thank you, Julio.
Thank you very much.
Great work.
Great work.
Thank you. Answer Director Quayle's question.
Can you get closer to the mic, Omar, please?
You answered Director Quayle's question regarding alarm systems. We do have analyzers, so if there was a leak, it would give us an alarm on our SCADA system, audible alarm, as well as our chlorine scrubber that would become active.
Right, so they go how low?
You know how low they're?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Where they at? When most analyzers, most are about 12 inches off the ground.
Okay.
I'm just talking about the alarm system.
Yeah, so understanding that elemental chlorine is about 2.5 times heavier than ambient air. They're all mounted about 8 to 10 inches off the ground because it's going to be heavy. It's going to go straight down to the ground.
Is that alarm system tied to something on the building door?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that are triggered when the alarm system goes off. And so the chlorine scrubber is activated. So it's drawing in everything from the room into the scrubber. It's neutralizing it with neutralizing material before it gets discharged. In the event that the double doors are open, they're triggered to close. If the exhaust fans are on, they're triggered to stop and the louvers are triggered to close. As well as the halogen actuators that I mentioned that are connected to the valves, they're triggered to close too, because that's where the source is.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Julio.
Welcome.
Thank you
very much.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Before we move on to the next one, I'm gonna go ahead and do a 5-minute break and reconvene. All right. Thank you, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed your 5-minute break and we're starting back up with 7C General Counsel's report.
Yeah, quick report. You can see tonight on the list of upcoming meetings, the Aqua JPIA Membership Summit is a day or so before the upcoming Aqua Conference. I was contacted by JPIA, has to be on a panel with respect to risk transfer and those type of issues. They're kind of developing the curriculum now, but I'll be on a panel at the Leadership Summit, Membership Summit, sorry.
Council, we have questions for council. Okay. Moving on to board directors, committee meeting reports. Aqua Region 8.
Oh, nice. The only thing I have there is that I was notified today that the appointment for Region 8, which we have Director McMillan, one of the interested parties. Our meeting will be April 10th to decide.
I'm counting on your vote.
But you probably have that and Tony's
And Cooper.
and Cooper too. Well, that's enough.
Congratulations on the nomination.
Thank you.
Yeah, Aqua Joint Powers Assurance.
No report.
No report. AWA, this was my last meeting as the board member on this one. And there was a presentation and installation of directors and officers. What we discussed at the executive committee at the board directors meeting was the installation of directors and officers. Plus Virginus gave a pure water presentation. They had 103 attendees at Channel Counties. March 18, water issues, invited Met to give an informational presentation on what the $10 billion water bond is going to get us. They confirmed Jay Jefferson from Metropolitan. New president for AWA is Suzanne Cooper. President-elect is Greg Patterson. Vice President is Steve Huber. Andy Martini took over as treasurer, and secretary for another term is Laura Hammond from Gill's Onions. Also with that, the board approved a cost of living adjustment for Kelly and her daughter. And that's my report. Does anyone else have? Okay. All right.
They increased dues
And they increased dues.
and there'll be another increase next year. They hadn't increased them in like 10 years.
Mhm. And
It was
It
a
just-
slight increase.
it just continues my questions, what is staff doing for AWA? What do they do on a month to month? And how many hours do they work? What sort of hours do they work? Where they put in? I've had those questions in the past, but I haven't have a good answer. Fox Canyon.
Yes, I attended March 26th GMA meeting remotely. What I want to point out is our PAC, especially our Deputy General Manager, sent a letter recommending certain changes in the budget. Your letter was very good, to the point, and I think you guys are doing a great job at PAC.
I think I got to give credit to Rob Grether who did the bulk of that work, but yeah,
there's 3 or 4 folks in the pack who are really investing a lot of energy, and I think it's paying off.
What I wanted to point out is, you mentioned there's $1 million extra in there. We could use that money for replenishing groundwater. That's a good comment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pacala. Do we have questions? Next one is report from Metropolitan Water District Director, Director McMillan.
On March 20th and 21st, I attended the Orange County Water Forum at the Westin South Coast Plaza Hotel. And on March 24th to the 26th, I attended MWD Committee's Executive Committee Camp for Water at MWD's headquarters and the Delta Construction Authority Legislative Briefing in Sacramento. And April 1st, MWD's Legal and Claims Planning Committee via Zoom.
Thank you, Director McMillan. Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance.
There was no meeting.
No meeting. All right. And I skipped over LAFCO, but we have not had a meeting. Next one is next week, Wednesday. Oh. BCSDA.
We had a meeting yesterday, with the new, board. The board or, yeah, I guess the new board. There's been a transition to some new folks. They're doing some interesting changes where they adjust the rate structure, where you pay for either 1, 3 or 6, 1, 3 or 6 seats. And because it's buffet style, it's if you do 2 people and you're on the 3 and then you've got 4, it's kind of all water under the bridge as long as it gets funded. It reduces the administrative overhead
Counting
of accounting for, you know, everybody at the door and all that. It makes them a little leaner. And I think they reduced the amount of meetings to 4 meetings a year. And then I think that's the bulk of the changes. And then there was we get my papers. Dinner was Mexican. There was a speaker, Elena Brokoff from the Museum of Ventura County, which is, her presentation was very, 4 of us were there, but her presentation was fantastic. Ventura County, Museum of Ventura County is the largest repository of art in Ventura County. It was established in 1913 from the original Ventura Pioneer Society, which started in 1891 from Dr. Cephas Bard. And he amassed the collection starting, he was a doctor and people couldn't pay sometimes, and so they paid him in things. And he amassed a collection of rare items, which eventually became the Pioneer Society, and then became the Museum of Ventura County. It was very interesting, and she gave a presentation on the first water district in Ventura County, which ended up in a murder. And they wrote a book about it, and it's on their website. It's fascinating. It was, you know, it's basically a true crime story. There's bribery and collusion and a mob and a fire, and so it was.
And it happened while they were digging for a canal.
Yeah.
Well, the initial fight started while they were digging a canal.
Well,
For the first water district.
Yeah, so it was
the
murder of Tom Moore, where angry settlers set fire to his barn and shot him, motivated by passionate battle over land ownership, water rights, and amid the rubble of lies, perjuries, briberies, omissions, and historical record. So it's a fascinating.
HBO original.
Yeah.
Do we know if the Dr. Bard referenced with the museum is related to the Bard who
They didn't
our lake
go-
is named after?
No, I made that connection just now when I was.
12 people in the county back then.
I don't know. if it's Lance Bard, but
They didn't know having any relatives after he died in the area.
No, okay, so maybe it is a coincidence.
yeah, so
T-West.
it was a very interesting presentation. I recommend you look that book up. That the museum wrote on this story. It's it's fascinating. And then we have, let me get into the actual purpose of ECSDA, which was, CSDA spoke about AB 259, which allows board members to attend meetings virtually for just cause reasons. They're asking that that be made more permanent. It has been good for special districts. AB 496 requires a phase out. It's the zero emission vehicle phase out by 2045. They're looking to establish an appeals process that has responses for denials and then the ability to reappeal, and also expands the category of emergency vehicles past like fire trucks, ambulances, things like that, that districts have for emergency situations that electric vehicles may not be suitable for. Federally, CSD is pushing to get a definition for special districts, since there isn't one federally, which can impact grants and federal funding. And the cybersecurity bill is back, which does include special districts, because Jackie Irwin is passionate that all government agencies be included. So sorry, Wes. But that's gonna be another fight. I was thinking maybe, yeah, maybe if you see large impacts that you could convey, maybe convey that to CSDA to support their request to remove special districts from that list, but.
Because there was a set of issues we had with that, right? I remember saying something.
If I may.
Sure, yeah. We missed you, Charlotte.
I remember Irwin introduced this bill, I think, 2 years ago, and special districts were included. CSDA fought really hard against it, so they were exempted, but it was always known that she was going to come back with a bill that did include special districts. So that's where we are with that, and it would require a .gov instead of a .com or a .org or a .net. So we'd have to transition to a .gov, you know.
It would be, I think we did this before, but it would be nice to maybe a presentation on the impacts on our agency and the costs that are going to be associated with this bill. To include, staff time on doing all these changes and researching it, and
I guess a quantitative impact that CSDA can show that, this is the effects of your bill. I mean, I'm sure you're super passionate about it, but this is what you're asking for.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, happy to follow up on that.
So Bill.
maybe, to go along with that letter, show pros and cons.
Mhm.
What's the benefit? What do we truly get out of changing 3 letters?
Right.
And then part of that meeting was a forum to see, interest in speakers, and one of those was VCSC asked members if they would volunteer to host some of the meetings. I recommend that we might be able to host here, to contact our general manager
I already met with Nellie Cusworth. She actually came by and she and I met maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
She was looking to get input, and I did at the time say we would be in a position to host. Everybody likes to see the plant.
I thought that might be.
I was approached and they asked me if I could ask you to. So.
I think we've got it covered.
I thought that'd be a great opportunity to do another one of our historic, history on Calleguas, since if we had a meeting here, then it's the history of here.
Yeah.
So,
United Water and all those.
oh, yeah.
Historical.
And that's it. The cupcakes were fantastic. They were really good.
So that's it for VCSDA.
It was interesting. I also attended the first time about special district meeting. It was interesting that there were legislative analysts were saying there are 50,000 special districts in the United States. That was amazing. 50,000.
And federally unrecognized.
Right.
And there's 2,350 bills, which is half as much as last cycle. But still a lot. For how many people at CSDA to review?
There's 3 lobbyists.
3. 3.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And now we are going to do the director's list of admin code reimbursable meetings, starting with Director McMillan.
On March 21st, I attended Las Virgenes, well, it's hard to say, Ocean Well Celebration in Calabasas. March 27th, Purveyors Meeting. March 28th, CoLab Circle the Wagons Luncheon, and that, the subject of that was how we are turning into a oil importer as opposed to an exporter. And because they're not getting the permits in place to drill quickly enough, we're looking toward a energy crisis. Worse than what we saw with Enron. Yeah, it was pretty scary, and that's actually going to impact emergency services here too. So it was a very serious discussion. And then April 2nd, tonight's.
Thank you, Director Quady.
On March 20th, I attended the Campville Water at MWD. And on the 21st, I went Beyond the Surface, Las Virgenes. On the 27th, I attended the purveyor meeting, purveyor managers meeting. And last night, CSDA, and tonight's board meeting.
Thank you, Director Quady. Dr. Pacala.
I believe I already reported attending on March 3rd, Calleguas Finance Committee meeting. I reported last time. The one I attended.
Director Roberts.
Sure. On the 20th, or since the last board meeting on the 20th, the AWA Waterwise, where I was sworn in as our representation and director. On the 21st, Las Virgenes Beyond the Surface event. Las Virgenes Beyond the Surface event. Drank from the filter from the lake water. It was delicious. On the 26th, Metropolitan Subcommittee on Long-Term Regional Planning and BCSD yesterday and tonight's board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Director Robert. For myself, on the 20th, I attended AWA Waterwise. On the 21st, I also attended the Ocean Well event put up by Las Virgenes. It was an incredible event. And I also drank straight from the spigot. And the 26th, we were invited last minute to the Ventura County Sheriff's Luncheon across the street by their captain, Matt Young, attended by Omar, Dan Cohen, myself, and Tebow. It was great. Got to look at their facility. They had some great opportunities of collaboration amongst our agencies. And then we brought over their captain, and he got a quick tour from Omar and myself, and had some good ideas on collaboration as well, and training for staff. And yesterday on the 1st, I attended BCSDA and tonight's board meeting. Thank you, everyone. And discussion regarding upcoming meetings to be attended by board members.
Yeah, if I could flag one upcoming item for discussion, it is listed on the table that Director McMillan, in conjunction with Director Garza from Central Basin, will be hosting a one-day Metropolitan Water Infrastructure Tour. This will include visiting Weymouth, the shops, the water quality lab there, as well as the Eagle Rock Control Center. Per legal counsel, we can have 2 board members on this tour. One will, of course, be Director McMillan as the host, and the board should determine who the second will be.
I'd like to recommend Director Pacala.
Which day is it?
It is Friday, May 9th. An all-day tour starting and ending here.
I'll be interested.
Okay,
thank you.
Director Pacala.
I have a question on the Glen Allen. Something I missed out on being able to see that.
I'm sorry.
The workshop for last time?
It's the the one where you went to the called the Glen Allen pump station. That's not it, is it?
No, because I don't know who you're referring to.
The place where we switched directions and
Sepulveda Pump Station, yeah.
pump station. There was a tour that was given a while ago. You go on that because
there was a power outage.
Well, what happened on the last infrastructure tour is we subbed in that future pump station location in place of Weymouth because Weymouth they had an emergency. There was a separate tour quite some time ago now of that facility. It's not planned to be on this infrastructure tour.
that's fine. I just
So,
was
but we
curious.
can certainly look for another opportunity for you to get out there.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Okay.
So I could remember the name.
I think it's just called Sepulveda Pump Station. It's currently Sepulveda Pressure Control Station, and they're going to add a pump station component to it. So Director Calleguas will send you the registration link so that you can sign up for the tour.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Item 5 is the request for future agenda items.
Excuse me. I do have an item on 7C4, right? 7-C4.
Okay.
I will be attending State of the City for City of Moore Park on April 10th.
Oh,
Mayor will be presenting it to the.
yeah, Simi Valley has one of those as well that I will also be attending. I need to get the dates on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was Oxnard.
But yeah, everybody should attend their regions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the way we've written what meetings the board can attend, those fall into it where you don't need additional approval.
Okay, request for future agenda items. I have 2, and I've already mentioned them. I would like a closed session of our infrastructure security overview on what we currently have and where it's at on our different facilities. Maybe start with a list of all the facilities that we have and what we have at those facilities. And also the second one was admin code changes to cover the staff housing and also possibly standards for facilities upkeep. Does anybody else have anything? Okay, do we have a need for a closed session? No. All right, and with that, calling this session adjourned.